Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Hey friends, I am Neethi the Pharmacist, here with my co-hosts Janae Williams and Valerie Cruz, and we are on full. Welcome to Our View.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hey friends. Today we are welcoming back Mrs. Kimball Sargent. Hey, Miss Kimball. She was here before, and this is going to be such a special treat. We didn't even want to stop the last time we were talking to her. We didn't want to stop, so now we get a chance to continue with her. She's a nurse psychotherapist and owner of Diverse Wellness Solutions, and is providing bold vision for an energy medicine revolution. Kimball has worked with gender variant children and adults for over 20 years. She was first called to this work to help people who felt that they were cut off from God because of their gender differences.
Yes. You know, I'm really passionate about this topic, Kimball, because I firmly believe that, you know, we're going to be speaking about a very difficult topic today, everybody. Okay. And what we're trying to share is, you know, the purpose of this show is to get everyone to think about how the browning of the earth is affecting us. You know, as human beings, we're on this planet, and our only job is to eat and procreate. And everything else that we do is out of sheer boredom. Okay? Everything. Nothing else is required. All right? So currently, you know, we are in a place where all of technology, advancement, you know, we're creating all of these toxins, which, I mean, I think there's no secret. Everybody knows that we're living in a toxic world, you know, but the way that these toxins that are in the environment, in the air, in the energy levels via like radio waves and things of that nature, and definitely in the soil and in the ground and in the food. And I'm still going to say that stuff that you guys are eating that is creating this hormonal imbalance is not food, it's poison. And people don't like it when I call what they're eating poison. They find it to be very disrespectful. And I'm telling you, you need to go out and find some regenerative farmers, or, you know, I don't think everybody can homestead. I'm not going to. I can't do it. There's, you know, everybody's not in a position to be able to buy a bunch of land and grow your own food. To me, that's not a solution. A solution is to find somebody who knows how to manage regenerative soil, who has their livestock on pasture, and they're using their land with animals and plants to produce nutrient-dense food. And if you don't, what happens is that you have everyone in a state of hormonal dysfunction. And today, Ms. Kimball Sargent is here to talk to us about, you know, how that's affecting our children. I mean, we love our children if they're damaged by vaccines. We love our children if they're damaged in any way, whether it be a birth defect, whether it be something that happens to them as they're growing up, you know, or, you know, you hear about children who become autistic. You hear about children who, you know, have a different type of damage all the time. So, you know, what's going on when you have a child that is having, like, you know, what they're calling these gender variant children or transgender, you know, no one is addressing this from a hormonal disruptive point, from a medical perspective of how did these children become damaged, out of concern, because honestly, Kimball, I'm like really just appalled and disappointed in the way society turns this into an inappropriate sexual conversation for children. It's inappropriate. It's inappropriate, in my opinion, for adults as well, okay? Like, when you're dealing with an adult who has to try to figure this out, this, you know, this gender difference, like what's happening, you know, I'm not allowed as a heterosexual to keep talking about, you know, my sexual anything behaviors because it's inappropriate, you know? But I will say that I'm able to procreate. And so this is not a conversation about what is right and what is wrong in the choices that people make, you know, for their sexuality, because I don't think people have a choice. But I want to talk about, you know, why is this happening? And I believe that it is happening because of the hormonal dysfunction, because of the toxins and the food that we are consuming. And I think that people need to start taking responsibility for, you know, ensuring that their children are not having to cope with this. And so I wanted to bring you on the show because I know that you're an expert in this, and I want for you to help us, you know, teach our viewers how to think about, you know, like, are there ways to change the children and adults who have been affected by the hormones and food and changes in the environment? Can you talk about that maybe first?
Okay. Well, you know, it is, and rather than a birth defect, because I think that people don't want to feel they're defective and they shouldn't, it's a birth difference. And, you know, we don't know exactly what is causing this, but we know that the numbers are going up drastically. And I'm often asked, well, what do you think it is? And I really do believe that all the hormones that are in the food, as well as the radiation and the different things that are going on, are really sending this off the charts. You know, I'm reminded of the first child that I ever saw, because when I first was dealing with this, I was dealing with primarily with adults, and a couple brought their 4-year-old in who, and they went to what would be considered a very conservative church, and they were not new age, but at 2 years old, when the child first was able to speak, the child had told their parents that they were a girl and not a boy. And they had been to the doctor, and the doctor said, oh, you know, the child will grow out of it. But it continued, and the child was going in and getting mommy's clothes, and they'd find the child with stuff. So at 3, that the doctor told them, we'll take them to a psychologist. And they carried the child to a psychologist, and they said, well, if you put the child into daycare, then the child will learn that this is appropriate and this will stop. Well, it didn't. And so then they came to see me, and I'll tell you, it's a complex situation, because we don't know what's going to happen until the child reaches adolescence and go through their changes. But there are more and more children, and very early they're telling their parents. And there was actually a study done in Europe a number of years back, and what they found was they did autopsies, and the male and the female brain are different. The female brain is smaller and weighs less, but has a larger limbic system, the feeling capacity. And then the male brain is larger, weighs more, but smaller limbic system. And what they found were the people who identified as trans women, which are male-bodied people who felt that they were women, had a female brain, and the people who were female-bodied but felt they were men actually had a male brain. And the numbers are going up. Well, if we look, and I think the numbers have all gone up probably primarily after World War II. So what happened then? Well, we started, you know, using all of these pesticides that had been warfare. They were chemicals of warfare. And we started, you know, killing things, and then we started genetically modifying the food, and then we started throwing hormones in, you know, everything that the animals are eating. And so now if you
and
look
industrializing the animals, Kimball, I want to say
yes,
that we're not just addressing the hormones that people think are being put into their meat. When you get meat and it says hormone free, I think it's a joke, because that creature had its own hormonal system. And let me just tell you something. If you're eating a centralized product, which is, you know, animal products from the grocery store, all of it, not any of it, there is no label that's safe, okay? Let me be very, very clear in stating that they are all raised on some form of CAFO, organic or otherwise. It is not correct, okay? So if that creature is in a state of depression, in a state of discomfort, in a state of where they just want to commit suicide and die, okay? They don't want to be alive, all right? There's no way that you're going to eat that creature and be fine. So at that moment, you know, I guess you could say I'm on a vegan train or something. But I am anti-veganism because I am for demanding the highest quality livestock that is raised in the balance of nature in the way nature intended. Okay, because it's very, very important, this piece. And so I don't want anybody to think that you're going to go and be able to find hormone-free meat. That is the most absurd statement. Do not ever believe that for even a second. There's no such thing as hormone-free meat. Okay? There might be some meat that they didn't add, like they didn't inject it with additional hormones, but let me tell you something. Food is a hormone delivery system. So if it was being fed incorrectly, like for example, a cow on grain, its hormonal system is hijacked. It is not normal. Right. It is never going to be the same. And that doesn't even get into the lack of clean air, the industrialized home life or life of that creature, the lifestyle. Okay. So anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to completely.
No, but that is a great thing to bring up. For people that are hunters, they know, like I love venison, and you've got to get that from a hunter. Well, hunters know that you don't want to run a deer before you shoot it, because if that deer has been running, you shoot it, the meat's going to be awful. Well, I remember I was on a road trip summer before last, and we were driving through Texas, and all of a sudden I smelled this stench, and I looked out the window, and it must have been for a mile to 2 miles. There was this humongous pen, and these were full-grown cows, and they were standing on each other, and I mean, relieving themselves on each other. And those were animals that were getting ready to be killed, to be steaks and hamburger. And I was appalled. And I mean, it really brought it so clear to me. It was like, oh my goodness. Because what were the hormones? When we get stressed, we deliver tons of cortisol into our system. And that cortisol is what toughens the meat, and it throws all the hormones out of whack. So when you buy meats of animals that have been treated that way, and then you eat those animals, then that's going to throw your hormones off. I mean, it was, it was
it's
like,
a no-brainer,
all
Kimball.
the lights came on. Absolutely.
Right. Like, I mean, why, if someone said to me, well, you're for eating meat, but don't, they're saying, the studies are saying that all these meat products are causing disease. What do you think? I said, absolutely. I absolutely agree that if you are going and buying barcode meat at a centralized grocery store, then it is complete and sheer utter garbage, poison. It is toxic. I will never eat anything out of a grocery store. Ask anybody who knows me. It's completely painful for them to try to deal with me because I refuse to eat it. And, my own family thinks it's offensive when I say that. And I'm like, look, you choose to do whatever you want to do, okay? And I've told you what I know. And we're sharing everything that we know with people all the time. And at some moment, you got to be responsible. Just like in every episode, we're calling everyone to action to take responsibility. And so I'm not a PITA person. Okay. This is where I feel like, you shouldn't consume anything that hasn't been enjoying, life as the way nature intended. And so we go out of our way to make sure that we are only consuming, life-giving force and nothing else. And so, it matters to me how the creature was treated, that it had a full life, that it was fed. Our animals eat great because we need them not to be in kidney and renal failure when we consume them. Right. Otherwise, diseased meat is going to cause disease, period.
Right. Know where the studies are coming from. That's one thing, too, because people just, they'll jump onto the vegan train because of the studies. But she went right into where those animals are coming from that they're studying. Nobody should be eating them animals because what did we learn? They're standing in like knee-deep manure, and they're
standing on top of each other.
They're standing on top of each other. There's the dead friend next to them and the dead one on the other side of them. And what kind of life is that? And you're going to eat that?
Right.
So if they could do the right kind of studies, then we would really learn that what true quality good food is that promotes health and doesn't disrupt our hormones.
You mean food?
Real food. Medicine.
How about not poison?
Medicine.
How about not poison? Yes, and medicine.
But I think what this show does is it helps in the science part. Because all science is observation I mean, what's
That's
the
right.
scientific method?
Mhm.
Anybody
That's
can
right.
be a scientist. They teach us that in grade school.
Yeah.
So
What's your
this show-
hypothesis?
Right. What the show does is it brings different observations. So and then through those observations, and we can do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I mean, what's your sample size that's comfortable for you
How about you be the
in
sample?
the results?
How about you do your own hypothesis for your own body? How about you? You know, I tell everybody, do your own chemistry project on your family. You don't need to
Absolutely.
do it outside of that. You know, and who cares? I don't care what's happening to other people. I only care about what's happening in my house. And I mean, that's enough for me to know. I can't manage the whole world. All right. And other people aren't going to do what I say anyway. So,
But you know, the truth is, there is research out there. When I was up at the Integrative Health Forum in New York, there was a study that showed where they went into a prison and they fed them organic food. Now, you know, I know that organic is not the end all be all, but if you're talking organic or you're talking what's typically at the grocery store, you've gone up one level. I mean, and you know what they found? In a month, the level of violence went down in the prison, statistically significant. So I mean, we do know, and it's beginning to be out there. The problem is people aren't talking about it, and because of capitalism, you know, they don't want it really to get out there. They don't want that to be out there. It's just like
Right.
when the information was stifled about fats back in the 60s. The research showed that that wasn't related to heart disease, but the sugar growers were able to suppress that. And then if you
the
look, so much of our
corporatocracy.
health, right?
The
everything changed.
corporatocracy. The corporatocracy that was never allowed by our forefathers that has taken over. They're rolling in their graves, Kimball, because our
Absolutely.
forefathers didn't allow corporations. And the only reason that you were allowed to have a corporation was for the greater good and for an actual purpose or a project like the railroad. And I've
Right.
said that before, and I'll say it over and over again. I want everybody to Google the history of the corporatocracy. And the reason our forefathers ran away from Europe and everywhere else in the world to come to America to supposedly make a new free land or whatever they thought that they were doing here. I mean, why do you think you're in America? Maybe everybody needs to figure that out. But I mean, supposedly that was what it was for, right? So everybody came over here, and then you're supposed to be in the home, you know, what is this? The land of the free and the home of the brave. No, it's not. We're not free. I can't even get married without a license. What are you talking about? You know, like all of it makes no sense. Like you should think about these things, people. I want everyone to understand that these are things that are outside of our control, and the corporatocracy is controlling the narrative. Okay, what the narrative is that they're trying to impose and normalize in society is that our ability to, like, the loss of our ability to procreate is supposed to be normalized. And if we speak about it, we are villainized because we are trying to judge somebody else for their, you know, sexual preferences, which is an inappropriate conversation. Okay, I don't want to have that conversation with you or anybody. It's none of my business what anybody's doing, you know, during their personal sexual experience. That's not for me to have a conversation about. It's inappropriate. Let's talk about what's appropriate. How about your children are going to be sterilized because people are already being sterilized because we have folks who are in, you know, failure to be able to procreate. And why is humanity not concerned about that? Rather than judging these people and creating a society of, you know, by cutting people off based on the fact that they're, you know, coping with hormonal dysfunction, which I know this must be sounding offensive to someone who is, you know, in the situation. And I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm trying to bring light to the situation of how did we get here? How did this happen?
Right.
Okay? It's not because I'm judging them. I'm definitely not. This isn't about my opinion of those people. I'm saying humanity is getting ready to be at a moment where we're unable to procreate. And why is nobody concerned about that?
We're trying to connect the dots. We just need you to see
Right.
that there's some dots that are separated that need to be connected. There's environmental impacts. There's people aren't thinking about what we talked about, the hormones, why are there so many additional hormones? And then why are our animals in such horrible conditions that they're so afraid and they're terrified? Why is it that our water is so infiltrated with toxins? Why do we have all of these vectors coming in that I think are creeping up on everybody, and people aren't really thinking of it or seeing it?
What did you say to me when you were on my podcast and I told you that the chickens couldn't have sex? Why? This is what y'all don't know. What we're trying to bring to light. If you're consuming livestock that does not have any desire to procreate or know how to even do the deed, okay, we're saying we support heritage breeds, which is beyond just the regenerative piece of it, okay? Because even regenerative agriculture and organic is never addressing heritage breeds or the fact that the breeds need to be able to procreate naturally. Like they need to know how to do the deed, okay? And so I told you that commodity chicken is a hybridized breed, which is called a Cornish cross. That is the only thing that you're going to get anywhere. If you're going to a restaurant or grocery store, even if they were raised on pasture, even if you go to a farmer's market, the majority of your local farmers are raising Cornish cross because there's a texture, there is a tenderness, there is a lack of chickenness.
Right. It's not as gamey.
It's not as gamey because it's not, I mean, people have been conditioned to eat this bland meat or this flavorless meat-like substance, okay, and call it, because they're having to sauce it up or do whatever, okay? But what they're not realizing is that if you're consuming creatures that don't know how to do the deed, how is that affecting your hormonal system? When I said that to you, I remember her face was like, OMG, because we weren't on a camera, so people couldn't see that reaction that
it
you had.
horrified me to think that I was eating something that's sending every message to me that it does not want to live. Please get rid of me. I'm not okay. I can't forage. I don't know how to get food. I don't even know how to mate. I want to die. That's what that thing was trying to say.
Kimball, how is this affecting us? Like, you have all these people. Yes, they're having a gender issue, okay? But what about the ones also, we're talking about alpha and beta males earlier. We were talking about that happening with the females because human beings right now are horrified at the preparation of meat. Never mind if they had to, like right now they have a show and it's called Survivor. And I think it's hilarious because they made a show about what we should just anyway know how to do, like have basic survival skills. And we don't know how to do that. We only know how to eat when they bring the trough to us, just like those chickens. We don't know how to eat if we have to actually buy, or fight for our food on an island or whatever, which should just be not a show. Like it should be laughable because these are things that people should just know how to do, just generally speaking, okay? But how many people do you know that actually could take the life of a chicken to prepare their dinner?
I'm not sure I could. I can fish, but I'm not sure I could kill the chicken. Just not sure I could do it.
I mean, I'm not sure I could even do that. That's the problem. I think that I would starve. I would need my husband to be able to try to do that. I'm not sure if he could. I could prepare it, like I could clean it,
Yes, I could do that.
Like I can do that with the fish. We went fishing. My children couldn't. They did not know that you gotta kind of kill the fish now, because you gotta knock the fish out or something. And then you got to bleed the fish. People don't even know any of that. But like when you go fishing,
goes back to paleo because back then the men were the hunters and the women were the gatherers, and they went out and they killed the meats and they brought it back, and the women cleaned it and prepared it. And I think part of it is people are so removed from their food. Now, see, I grew up on a farm, so there were livestock there.
But you weren't the one responsible for killing it, right?
No, the men killed it. I can still remember hog killing. I remember very well because that was something you did in the fall of the year. And the hog was killed, and he was brought in. He was laid out in that backyard, and the men were doing all the stuff, and the meat was carried in. And my grandmother took care of it, and they froze it, and they did it all there. But people have been removed from that, and so now children, and I mean, they're used to their pets. We have our dogs, we have our cats, and all of this. Well, they can't imagine killing that and eating it. And they think of that with the livestock, but the truth is, the livestock wouldn't live. It's not like we're going to have cows all over the place if we don't eat them. And truly, there are things that you get from eating beef and eating different meats, and particularly beef, because that's where you get your B12. And if you don't eat that, then you can't be healthy. I had a child in my office a couple of weeks ago. I've been seeing the child for about a year, and they've got a depression, and no matter what we do, no matter what I'm trying, they're not getting better. They're not getting better. And I mean, I've been asking, oh yeah, I eat this. But then finally, the last time they went, the parents said, well, he's been a vegetarian for a year.
Wow.
And I said, well, he's not getting any B12. And
he needs some bone broth.
Right.
He needs some bone broth. And you know what? This is the thing.
Real quick, Kimball, what did you tell them after?
Oh, I told them that. Well, then we went into a whole long dietary discussion and what's got to change, because there's not a medicine that we can fix it. We've got to get over this idea that you just take the pill and then you're going to be okay.
You mean the arrogance of man, where they've created a chemistry project tablet that they want you to ingest because the life-giving force out of the soil is just not good enough, right?
Kimball, when you got into the conversation of changing his lifestyle, where did that lead?
Well, the mother was open. The child is a little bit, but that's animals, and well, yeah, it is animals, but we need those animals to be healthy. I think that the conversation really needs to start about farming and all with little children, with them seeing the animals, and that's what, and the animal can have a very good life if it's on a good farm and it lives out his life, and then it's met that place where it's time for it to die and become part of the food source. That this is the cycle of life. We've lost that. And
that hoop is broken. It's beautifully expressed in Josh Tickle's book, Kiss the Ground. And he's explained it beautifully where, he actually sat down with one of the great ancestors of Sitting Bull, Chief Sitting Bull. And he's saying that, the hoop, we have many hoops, of life. And the hoop the connection between the food and humanity has been broken. And, I also think parents have to take a responsibility in that as well. And, parents are not teaching their children how to eat because they don't think they need to. They think that the children are going to tell them what they want to eat, which is completely backwards. And I see it happen over and over and over and over again. And why? Why are these parents not pushing their children into corners to teach them how to do that? They do the same thing if they were trying to teach them how to ride a bike. There's a certain way to ride a bike. There's a way for you to have, proper hygiene. There's a way for you to do things, and children need to be taught. They don't know unless you teach them. Mm-hmm. Even a mother bird is going to teach her baby bird how to eat before it throws it out of its nest.
Well, Nikki, that is something that used to take place. And what we know is that foods and the textures have to be presented to the child at certain ages, or they really have a lot of problems. And there's certain children who have what we call sensory integration issues. And I have a whole process that I use with kids with sensory integration issues. And it takes a month to 6 weeks from introduction to the child really eating the food. Because if you don't hit these markers, and certainly if a child has a little bit of a different brain, but the problem is parents aren't doing this anymore. I can't tell you, I would say that half of the kids that I see, when I start getting at the diet, they're eating no vegetables. The only vegetable they might eat is a potato, and that's in the form of a French fry, which is not really a vegetable as far as I'm concerned. That's a whole other thing. But they're not getting these, and we need these nutrients, and that's where you're bringing in, as you say, the dirt. That's coming back into our bodies. And we've got a whole society that is undernourished, and I get very frustrated because they come in, well, I think that they can't concentrate at school. Well, what are they eating? Because that is a conversation that's got to be had. Well, they're, and the truth is they're not eating vegetables, and a lot of them are not eating meat. they're eating white bread and they're eating sugar.
Chemistry
And that's what,
projects.
that's
Chemistry
right.
projects. And they call this is poison. It isn't. This is child abuse, and I keep saying that. And people, are offended at my audacity to say that, but it is child abuse, And I don't know why. Yeah, I knew a child one time, and their parents said, "Well, all this child will eat is Cheerios." Why? Or what are you talking about? What if the child didn't have them?
What is the age, Kimball, for parents to shoot for in order to train them on how to eat?
As soon as you start feeding the baby, as soon as you start, you want to bring in different vegetables. I remember I made my own baby food. I did that when and that was way before that was in vogue. That was back in the 80s.
I did that. You know what? We've always ever done. In India, they don't have baby food. Well, they might now, but when I was coming up, they didn't have baby food. You took whatever you made for dinner, you put it in the blender, and you gave it to the baby. That was it.
That's right.
The adults were eating it, and the children were eating it. There was never extra special food made for children.
And it can even start before that, too, because when you're nursing, if you nurse, of course, but if you nurse, the variety, but if you're nursing, then you need to have a variety of foods that you're eating. You need to eat good, clean foods, vegetables, because what you're
and a round robin
of
fats
because
and
they're getting all of that, and then you're training them as a baby to grow up and be okay with a diversity of different kinds of foods.
Well, that child's body is going to be looking for that round robin.
Right.
And the minute they receive it, then, when the child puts it in their mouth, then the body's like, oh, yeah, and it's a trigger.
And I think that the baby foods, these that the people buy at the grocery stores, I can remember having some on hand for we were traveling or whatever, and you opened up that stuff and it stunk. I wouldn't have eaten it. So why would I expect my baby to want to eat it?
Right.
I remember peas. I remember opening up a can of that and thinking, oh, that stinks.
And it's not like peas at all. You're like, my peas don't ever smell like that. I don't know what's going on.
It's true.
Right.
And a lot of babies don't eat it. A lot of babies choose not to eat it. And then parents are struggling to figure out what to feed them.
All right, wait a minute. I want to get off topic here. We're saying that, these foods and environmental factors are affecting the incidence of gender issues in our society. Is that true?
It is true. And this is a real important point I want to make here. A few years ago, I was reading in the Journal of Wellbeing, and they started off talking about all the hormones that are in foods, but they were talking particularly about children that are not breastfed, that are using some type of formula. And if a child has any problem with the formula that has, that's regular milk with whey, then they're giving them soy formula. Well, in China and Japan, they never give soy formula to babies because it is full of phytoestrogens. And this article was talking about, well, when you have that, then you have little girls who are 3 years old, and you see these little kids, and they've got breast tissue. And a 3-year-old should not have breast tissue.
Let me tell you something. You know what, Kimball? In Eastern culture, you do not feed soy to any child. It's all, not even young adults. Only the elderly and anybody who is outside of, after they have had their children. You never, ever, never, ever, never, ever feed soy to any young people. Never. If you want to procreate, you're not going to be eating soy. And guess what, Americans? All of your animals are being fed soy. But let's not stop at villainizing the livestock, okay? Because all you vegan vegetarians, everything you eat is soy. Everything.
Absolutely.
Everything. If you're going to a vegetarian restaurant or a vegan restaurant, if you think that they're not using soy oil to prepare your food, you don't know what you're talking about. If you are buying any oils to cook with in your home, they are genetically modified. You are not free of this, okay? If you go anywhere and buy something called vegetable oil, it is genetically modified soy. And if you are eating that vegan powder thing that they put in egg cartons to make it look like vegan eggs, or I don't know what
everything.
That entire chemistry, it's pretend food. It doesn't even matter what the ingredients are. It's pretend. If you're taking scoops of powder from anywhere and putting it on your plate in some way, shape, or form, in a drink, in a glass, in whatever, it is a waste of money.
And even if it's organic, that doesn't mean you get over that phytoestrogen problem. So you're still messing with your hormones because of just.
Now, and here is the key piece on that phytoestrogen with soy formula. Baby boys run an adult male's level of testosterone the first 3 months. And that is continuously bathing that baby's brain and shaping it. Because remember, I've already told you that the male brain and the female brain are different. But every single baby starts off the same in utero, the little embryo. And then it's changed according to the hormones that it comes in contact with in the different processes.
So wait a minute. So if the mother is on soy milk while she's pregnant because she's vegan or healthy or whatever, maybe she's eating meat, but she's on soy milk, she's on soy, whatever, all the 100 soy things that are out there. Now what? She's doing her cafe soy.
I don't know. We're seeing a lot more what we call androgen sensitivity. Do I know that there's a direct correlation there? I can't tell you that.
Okay,
but
explain androgen.
Okay, androgen is testosterone, and androgen sensitivity is when you have a child that was genetically coded to be a boy. But there's a certain place where there's something where the SRY fires, and when that happens, the testosterone takes hold, and the baby becomes what I call an outie. A penis grows. Because like I said, all of these embryos start the same. You're either an innie or you're an outie. Well, if there's androgen insensitivity, then the SRY doesn't fire. And even though the baby has the DNA of male, it's not going to develop anything. And when the child gets to be the age that they're, would be, so the parent thinks that they have a girl, and the child gets the age, then they never start a cycle. And, they don't develop the secondary sexual characteristics. It's an intersex condition. But, it would make sense to me that this is a possibility. What I know and what may look like is a normal birth of a male, if that child is on, in this article, I thought it was very interesting. It talked about what it did to females. And then it said, we don't know what these very high levels of phytoestrogen will do in male babies. Well, if the first but they did point out that in the first 3 months, if the child was on those, it would not run a male testosterone level. Well, that brain is being bathed. So if it's not, then, that seems to me it would be a very great introduction into that child's gender, not developing as we would expect for it to.
Valerie, what are you getting out of this? Because she knows how to simplify these things.
All I know is my daughter was given soy formula pretty much at birth, and her body rejected it. She's now allergic to soy. So it's telling me, and I base everything off of my daughter because she's the one who got me into the regenerative lifestyle. So with her body rejecting soy, it's telling me that it's not natural. It's not natural, and it's not good for any human.
Well, whoever decided to milk a soybean, okay? People,
right.
This is the funny thing to me, Kimball, is that, it's very easy for a lot of people to go around saying human beings, they're the only ones who get weaned off of their mama onto some other animal or other animal's milk. And I go, yes, that's right, because we are at the top of the food chain. There's nothing unusual about that. That's the reason why, native diets around the world revolve around the milk of other creatures. And by the way, that's a lie, because if you've ever been on a farm and you grew up on one, so you tell me, but like if you have a cow that's nursing, then the dog's drinking some milk off of that cow, the cats are, every creature is going and, trying to get around that mama cow, and that mama cow might be a really good mama and will be trying to save and protect her milk for her baby, but if you're actually on a farm and you think that any of the other creatures that are walking around, people haven't been on farms with multiple species, obviously, because if they had been, then they would realize that any of the milking mamas, any of them, all the other creatures, like it is not unusual to find a little puppy nursing on a hog mama. It's just not. If a hog mom is nursing her little hog
Right.
babies and piglets, then a little puppy could walk up and start drinking off of that mama too. And it happens. So this statement is irresponsible and absurd. So I would really appreciate if all of the educated physicians would stop saying that. It's absurd. What is actually unusual and outlandish and frankly insane is milking a soybean or milking an almond or, I mean, coconuts produce milk. That's completely different. Okay. So I'm not even talking about something that natural fruit is bearing this powerful life-giving force. We're not talking about that. We're talking about you taking thousands of nuts and milking them and, and then you're going to try to say that you know what you're talking about. No, you don't. What are you saying? It's completely unnatural. You just took something like nature's perfect food, a nut, and now you have dismantled it, which is what they're doing to the soybean, and they're dismantling it, and it is creating poison. And now you're going to feed that to your child because you don't want to give cow's milk to your child? That's absurd.
It's like if you have a pharmaceutical and you have one capsule that you're supposed to take. I'm not saying this is the ideal, but I'm just saying if you instead take 25 capsules or just like grind them all up into some kind of a
OD.
Yeah, and just put a whole lot of it in there, then you're concentrating this. It's not supposed to be taken that way. So it's like if you want to think, because people don't think about food as medicine. Well, I'm using a medicine as an
example.
But if you have food,
thousands of almonds,
that's medicine, and now you take an almond, which is nuts that are trying to protect themselves. They're giving you a sign. They're saying, I have a shell. It's going to take you some work to get to me, but now you're going to deshell, barrels of these things and turn it into milk. You're overdosing on something that they've already told you naturally is not natural or good for us.
Right.
And make us sick.
Well, I mean, obviously it's not a conversation that's happening properly. Because when I say you shouldn't be drinking almond milk, then they're like, oh, mine doesn't have sugar in it. Okay, genius. But why did you milk the nut in the first place? And then they find out that their children have a more rapid reaction, and now they're becoming sensitive to coconuts or to milk.
What we need to
to almonds or to all these different nuts. And why? Because nobody ever expected you to ever consume all of that. It's insane. It's insane.
Correct.
People need to pay attention to the children.
Right. How hard do you have to work to get?
Tell you what's wrong.
Or other animals too.
Or
the other animals. Well. If you're on a farm with a whole bunch of species and you see the way that they all interact with each other, and you see the way the babies and the mamas of all of these species are interacting with each other, then you would never make this ignorant statement. Never. You would never make it because it's simply not true. And the truth is that when you have the incorrect breed, these black and white spotted cows, incorrect breed, and then you take that breed and you put it on concrete, stress, they can't stand on concrete, stress, and then you're feeding it grain, not the correct feed, that creature is stressed out, and then you milk it, and then you sell it to somebody after you made it dead because you pasteurized it and changed the chemistry of it, and then you want someone to thrive on that. Of course, it's easy for you to say that we're crazy to consume it. Yes, it's poison. It's not food. But when you're out in the field and you have a heritage breed cow eating grass on living soil, and then you go and milk it because all the other creatures want to drink that milk, not just me, every single one. That's because you're getting life-giving force out of the soil through this creature, which is delivering to me a hormonal, like shooting up some medicinal hormones into my system so that my body can use that to thrive in some way. This is the hoop that's broken. Okay. And so you have holistic and also not holistic physicians either putting you on pharmaceuticals or nutraceuticals, and it's incorrect. And am I saying that you're not supposed to go to a holistic physician? No. Am I saying that you're not supposed to go to emergent care or emergency room to see an allopathic physician? I have never said that. I said that you need to take responsibility for your own medical decisions and be active and go to the correct person for the correct, ask the person the right question.
And pay attention.
Because
in your example, Kimball, you said that you were doing everything for that child and he was still not getting better.
Right.
You had to pay attention. You have to pay attention and understand every action that is going on. And then what was the ultimate thing there? When you change your lifestyle, what happened?
Right. And diet is, and that's one of the problems. I mean, in med school, most doctors get 30 minutes or less of nutrition, and they get traditional nutrition, which is not accurate. And so they really don't know. Doctors don't know that nutritional piece. They don't. And nurses
allopathic doctors
don't.
Allopathic doctors do not, right? I want to keep saying that because people don't understand that this is not about the medical realm and that allopathic physicians are not the only physicians on the planet.
Well, and even some of the doctors that we think that should know. Campbell has a program now, having one of my moments, and these doctors are supposed to be more holistic. They take one nutrition course that's taught at NC State. One nutrition course is not enough to help you. And no one ever asked about the diet. I had been sending this kid back and forth to his doctor because he came to me with certain doctors, and I had not gotten in enough on the diet. And I usually do this with kids. I mean, I have all the time. I have these kids that can't concentrate, and then I find out they're getting about 10 grams of protein a day. Well, I don't care what pills we put them on, if they don't get enough protein. I mean, these kids are eating sugar from the moment they wake up till the moment they go to bed at night. And I mean, they're going to die of cancer. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Right.
I mean, because they do not have proper nutrition, and sugar.
And they'll be diabetic on the way, and they'll have like 10 other problems before that happens. And
right.
then it's going to be some shocking reveal, that they, and then of course we're supposed to pay for the cure.
Right.
Or the research.
That's right. And it diet is everything. It is, it's our fuel. People worry about where they buy the fuel that they put in their cars. I've heard people say, well, don't go there because they put this and that, and don't go there and they put this and that. We're talking about food is the fuel that you put in your body. And you've got to think about everything that you're putting, because if you don't give it the right fuel, then no, it's not going to run right. No, you're not going to be able to concentrate. No, you're not going to sleep well. But there is this huge disconnect from the food and the source and how it's prepared and then our eating it and what our health is.
Well, are you allowed to prepare your own food?
Of course you're allowed to, but
I'm just curious because, I think it's interesting that people are, why are people not, they're so comfortable with just not being involved with that, and then, it's just too much for them to think about. And I'm not judging anyone. I'm asking you, if you have a child that you don't want to be around because they're bouncing off the walls, okay? So putting them in a program isn't the solution. How about changing their fuel?
Right.
How about maybe you should spend some time trying to figure out how to prepare something that is going to help them become more docile? Because our children on real food are very, I would say they're considered to be docile, but that doesn't take away their childlike fire. I mean, my kids are on fire and they're ready to go. But if I say their name, they're going to stop, look at me. If you said their name, they're going to stop. Yes, Mrs. Williams, what are you saying? Immediately. If I say that to any of their kids or anybody actually in our CSA, if I'm talking to their children, they're going to stop. And they're going to look at me and they're going to say something to me, but, and that's different. You don't see that everywhere. You know that. You're working with the general public all the time. And
the issue is that the parents that come to your CSA are involved parents that are actively parenting, that they're giving the children good fuel. So many Americans today are running on automatic pilot. You know, they're working too much. They feel like they don't have time to cook. They just run through the drive-through. Everybody sucks the food down. There is no mindful eating, and eating mindfully sets up your body in order to take in the food. I mean, that's a whole nother piece.
Are you talking about
Mindful
eating intentionally?
Yes. Intentional eating. And so everybody is on autopilot, and the parents feel like I can't do it, and the kids are growing up that way, and it is a whole societal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
why are they so overbooked, Kimball? You know what? I took my kids out of every program one year because I was overwhelmed. You know,
well,
after the loss of our child and everything, I could just barely wake up. Okay, and I wanted them to be in programs because I kind of wanted them to not be in our kind of depression hole at the house or whatever, you know what I mean? But it was really, really hard. It was very, very difficult. I think that, you know, a lot of these parents are overbooking their children out of some societal pressure that if they don't book their kids into 25 programs or whatever it is, that they're not actually allowing them to experience a full life. And I think that, you know, let your kid be bored. You know, because I think it's interesting that, you know, I mean, I don't know why you need to feel like you're responsible for entertaining them continuously when, you know, they don't have the opportunity to develop their own thoughts, to develop their own ideas and things. They're not going to be world changers. You just said that, you know, these days kids are, you know, growing up to never want to leave the home or whatever. For what reason? Right. Why would they ever need to go anywhere? They're continuously being entertained.
They're being entertained. It's all, you know, and everything they want comes to them immediately. I mean, it's a huge societal issue. You know, the idea that children don't want to get their driver's license, they don't want to have to do their own running around. They don't want, they want to sit and play video games and have everything given to them. And that is a cultural piece. And, you know, everything is automatic, and it's a really sad piece of society that has got to be changed because we can't continue this way.
I think it still stems back to the hormones because the kids, because of the hormonal dysfunction, the kids and all the sugar and the diet, kids are bouncing off the walls. So parents have no choice but to put them into something.
Just get them out of the house.
Because how else do you calm them down? How else do you go through a day-to-day routine without, like, it's like running them like a horse, right?
But Valerie, they can't afford to pay for the food, but they can afford to pay for all these programs are a joke. Do you know how expensive these programs are? You know what? I think it would be an interesting project for a family to take all the money that they're spending on all these extracurricular activities, uniforms, cost of whatever it takes for them to participate, travel with these soccer teams and whatever else that they're doing, okay? Take all of that money and put it towards real food on a farm. How about use all that time and drive out to the farmer every week? How about take all of that energy and use it in the kitchen to prepare a meal and then tell me that you don't want to hang out with your kid? Because I love my children. I mean, I miss them. I want to do stuff with them all the time. I'm working with them. We should be hating each other, driving each other crazy. And we don't. But my kids wanted time on their own. They want to go and be free or whatever. My son can't wait to drive so he can go and do something on his own. But he also is excited to be home. He also is excited to be with our family. And, you know, what 14-year-old do you know that is interested in any of that? He wants a balance. He wants to make time for all of it. And I think he should be able to go out and do whatever he wants. I don't need to be hanging on his shoulders all the time. And I don't have to worry about how he's going to behave when he's out there, you know, because I've already pushed him into every corner I possibly could. But I want to invite parents to rise and invest in these things. And, you know, Kimball, you're really, you know, we're coming up on the hour here. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, you know, you've always been able to provide incredible resources. Do you have a specific resource that you are a fan of that you feel could help parents learn more about this if they're interested in diving in further? Or What can
In
you
learning about the gender and all that. Well, I mean,
well, the
Google is our
hormonal
friend.
imbalance. Well, how
Yes.
what's the non-dangerous Google information, I guess?
Well, I mean, you have to go through it, but if you want to, Google hormones in foods, and what and it's going to come. Read as much as you can, because and make the decision yourself. I don't think that we should be thinking for people, but there is a lot out there. Find a practitioner who is interested in this and talk with them. But I mean, it I'm not meaning to be ugly, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist. Just like the whole idea of that, if you talk to a hunter, will he run a deer and then shoot it and take that meat home to eat? No. So I mean, why would you? And we know it's all the hormones that they put out when they're stressed. So why would you want to eat this food, and what is it going to do to your family? And you talk about people being scientists. Well, be the scientist yourself. Clean up your child's diet for 2 to 3 weeks. Clean it up. Buy some meat from a local farmer. Buy your vegetables, from a farm where they're not sprayed. Just put the kids on these diets and do it for 3 weeks. And
I say a month,
about
Kimball. Let's put them on project. Let's let them do
Yeah,
a project
month is better.
for the
A month
summer.
is better.
If you and I'm not saying putting you on some protocol like autoimmune protocol or something like that. Like, no. How about just decide to have an adventure for 1 month with your family, and just all you're going to do that month is see how much food you can get from people who you know are producing it locally on farms or whatever. And just decide that for these 4 weeks, we're only going to eat whatever we can gather from here, just for the fun of it. Make it joyful and see what kind of cool recipes and things you can come up with, and just decide, let's pretend like we are hunter-gatherers for this month. We're not going to eat out. We're not going to spend any, we're not going to say that we can't do it because we have to be at wherever, because we're not going to schedule anything else. Just do it for 1 month. I want to see what difference you see, and I think it would be interesting if they had the family keep a journal, and for the younger children they can do like a vlog journal, and for the ones who can write, maybe they write it, maybe they vlog it, whatever. But I think it would be really cool for the parents and the kids to see the videos they make at the beginning, and if they do a vlog entry every week or something, or maybe every couple of days. Maybe it's daily, but maybe that's too much. Like maybe once a week they just say, what did they do this week? How did they feel? Where was their energy level that day, right? Or that week? And do they feel any different than they did before? Are they having a good time getting to know the producers in the community or whatever? And just, why can't that just be for fun? And then I think it would be interesting to know how the child is behaving in the beginning of the month versus the end, and maybe even the parents.
I would really want the parent to have a calendar. And I tell parents to do this. Get a calendar, and just at the end of each day, write down what the child's behavior was. This a good day, a bad day, a hyperactive day, a lazy day,
wow.
A sassy day. Mm-hmm. And you just go through, and nothing big, just write 1 or 2 words on that calendar, and then follow it for the month and see the changes.
Kimball, what about that parent that has that child that will only eat the French fries and the nuggets? What would you tell them when they're making this plan to journal and to record everything and the results of it, and they don't want to eat anything that's put in front of them?
Well, I do not think the child will starve themselves to death.
That's right.
So when the child gets hungry, the child will start eating those things. Now, if the child has sensory integration issues, if we're talking about a child on the autistic spectrum, you may need to bring in someone who can do a program with the child to help them get through those sensory integration issues, because this child may start having major meltdowns. I mean, you really do have to work with that child. For someone with sensory integration issues, everything is amplified. And so when they put a food in the mouth that has a texture that's unpleasant, we might think, oh, that's a little slippery. But for them, it's like somebody taking fingernails and going back and forth on the chalkboard, and it just being, at the highest frequency you could hear it. I mean, it's really hard for them. So they may need some help. For your average kid, you know, they're going to fuss and they're going to bicker and they're going to complain, and then give them a week and they're going to be over it.
Right.
Now, like I said, if
Now
a
they
child
might
has some real
detox
challenges,
too, guys. You know, be conscious of the fact that they might detox. So like when
oh,
you
they
start,
will detox.
yeah, when you take them off of junk food junkies and you decide, okay, we're not going to the grocery store for this month. It's their summer adventure or whatever. We're only going to get things from where we can find it and just make meals at home, and we're not going to do other activities. This is going to be our project for the time. Then I want to know, you know, I mean, I want you to be prepared for the fact that they may come up with flu-like symptoms and things of that nature as a result of the detoxing, okay?
And it's okay.
It's okay.
It
And
is
Keep
okay.
going.
just keep going. Don't change the diet. And in fact, you might want to just increase your vitamin C. That is something, you know, and salt, like using real salt, and increase your salt intake a little bit.
And definitely your water, because that's
Yes,
what you, in order to
water.
get through, you gotta, and everybody should be drinking half their body weight in ounces of water a day. And if you're
Filtered,
drinking
clean.
things like, yeah, if you're drinking coffee or you're drinking teas, then you even need to do more, because that's dehydrating. And the
Right.
only way you can detox and pull those things out is by having that water.
And for the new parent, stay away from the formula, the soy formula especially.
Absolutely.
That's right.
If you can breastfeed, and there are a few women out there that can't, and they shouldn't feel bad. I mean, you know,
Right.
it something didn't happen right in their bodies, or they would be able to. But you can't fix that. It just is what it is. But if you can breastfeed, that is the greatest gift that you can give your child. I
Right.
mean, it doesn't matter what study there is out there on breastfed kids, they do better. I mean, and then the breastfeeding mother has responsibility to be eating well, to be bringing in all these different nutrients.
And
I
sleeping.
think, and oh, sleep.
The
You've got to
mothers have to sleep and
hydrate,
drink
all
10
of
times
that.
more water.
Absolutely. Because if the mother is not eating enough and getting enough nutrition for herself, then the baby is not going to have enough nutrition, because it's pulling from the mom. And I have seen some breastfeeding women that were really actively trying to reduce weight and were restricting calories. And you can't do that, because when you do that, you are restricting your baby, and you've got this little brain that's trying to develop, and it's got to have those different nutrients. Without those nutrients, we don't develop, and then you run into problems.
Well, these new mothers should know that the more you nurse, the more weight you lose. The
Exactly.
more you nurse, the faster you get your body back, actually. If you really want to be successful with getting your body back after having a baby, you want to nurse.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
your
yes.
body will be better than it ever was before if you nurse, the longer you nurse, you know. And if you are unable to nurse, then the best formula you could actually use is a bone broth formula. And you can find the recipe for that by going to the Weston A. Price Foundation's website, and they have a resource tab, and you can look up their baby formulas there. They have one for how to do it with raw milk, but also with bone broth. And so you can absolutely do it with bone broth, in which case you really need to make sure that the animals are healthier than you are, and you get them from some farm that you know, like that you can put your eyes on, and that they have grass. Okay. Well, Kimball, I think that we've had so much fun, and we definitely went over the hour, but we needed to say all of these things. It's very important. And we, I don't know, like, you just have me reeling all the time about everything. It's hard to end the conversation, because it's just
You are
so
awesome.
much good
You are
stuff.
awesome, and I thank you for all the work you do, because it's needed and it's amazing.
Thank you for
Yes.
having
Thank
this
you.
very, very difficult conversation with us. And you know, I really hope that all you viewers out there are really, you know, able to appreciate what we're saying, and hopefully we have put it in the correct context for everyone, and that you realize that we're not trying to offend anyone or anything. This is just, you know, we want to have these very hard conversations for people to really be able to thrive, and specifically for humanity to be able to do what we're supposed to do, which is to eat and procreate.
Yes.
So thank you for your time,
Thank you.
and keep up the good work, and we really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Hey friends, we hope that this production has served you in some way today. If you would like to hear more shows like this, please help us grow our army of Minas by visiting our website and making a donation today. We are a 501c3 nonprofit corporation, and I ask that you please like and share this video, follow us on Facebook, become involved with us on Instagram and Twitter, and all of our links can be found in the show notes. Thank you.